Hello and welcome to Roundtable, number 16 of Dualistic Unity. I know that there is no right way to live. I know it, not a shadow of a doubt. And yet, still, from time to time, excuses that come up for me, things that I don't want to face, I don't want to look at. And my mind will come up with just a shitload of reasons why I shouldn't look at that. Oh, you can look at that. Oh, it's because of this. It's because of that. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just avoiding something. And maybe facing it is exactly what I need to do. And without so much concern for what anything means about me, because I know that it couldn't possibly mean anything about me, makes it a lot easier to face those excuses, recognize those excuses, and not think that letting go of the excuse is going to mean anything about me either. Because without that concern, there is a lot less to fear.
And that's exactly the point. It's the concern that kind of drags back the whole story and makes it suck. And once you get rid of the concern of needing to know anything, you're left with potential. And you can express that potential. And you can get enthusiastic about expressing that potential. And it never means anything about you when that potential falls short of your expectations, except that maybe don't have so many expectations. Because why do you have expectations outside of the fact that somehow it means something about you, which it doesn't, except by your own choice to make it so? You can just let it go, express yourself, be what you are, and let it unfold before you. There is no reason that you have to know what everything is. You can sit in the unknown and just let it teach you over and over from moment to moment exactly how much you already are.
So, with all of that said, I hope you enjoy this live stream that is Roundtable number 16, Dualistic Unity.
We are live. It's a roundtable. This is awesome. This is a huge, huge roundtable. We are joined by Levi, PMAC, Marie, Amanda, Jazz, and Mark. This is great. These are all members of the community that we talk to rather frequently. So we're very excited to see where this conversation goes. I, for one, have had just a weird day of doing stuff. I was kind of traveling around with my daughter around town today on the bus, and I went to the bank and I did the second deposit on our Netherlands retreat. So I'm very excited to say that we are one more significant steps towards our Netherlands retreat. Another quick announcement is that we have the Vermont retreat tickets now available on sale on Patreon to tier 3 members until Monday, the 1st, and then it will be available to tier 2 members, and then a week later, tier 1 members, and so on and so forth. There are, I believe, 6 or 7 tickets left for the Vermont retreat. It's going to be August 24th to August 28th. It's a lot of fun. I'm really excited for this one because there's a pool table there for one. I like playing pool. There's a hot tub, of course, but there's also some like old pinball games. I was really excited about seeing that in the photos for the place, that there's a couple pinball machines, and it's just a huge ground as a whole, big green yard. There's a fountain and shit. And it looks just like a big wooden cabin. So it's definitely got a vibe. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely got quite the vibe. It's like the most quintessential cabin in the woods, but like on steroids, you could imagine, like a massive lodge in the woods, but it's awesome. But just because we almost never mention stuff at the start, this roundtable, if you'd like to be on one of these, they're podcast episodes, and you can be on one if you join tier 2 or tier 3 on our Patreon. Every other week, we split every other week between call-in show and the roundtables, and they're always a blast. These are kind of a glimpse at what our Patreon groups are like. It's just a bunch of people having a conversation, no agenda, no rhyme or reason, just wherever anyone wants to take it. If anyone wants to bring up any topics, have insights, thoughts, questions, this is what we do it with, how we do it. So these are the roundtables, but they're very similar to our Patreon group. So if you've been hesitant to join Patreon, it's kind of what they're like. Super casual, a lot of fun, and yeah, so just wanted to toss that in there before we get into it. But yeah,
I have one more thing I'd like to toss in, actually. And I think this is actually one thing we want to reiterate. So on our Patreon groups, they're completely private, which means that you can have these conversations like this conversation with us, and it will never be public. Nobody will ever see it outside of our Patreon members. What's nice, though, is that in these conversations, especially in this roundtable right now, it might seem like everybody's very comfortable having this conversation, but I can assure you that almost every single person in this group right now at one point was hesitant to have a group discussion with us in private on Patreon. At that one point, this was a significant step to even have this discussion. And now they have it with us regularly, openly, and with enthusiasm, to the point now where they're willing to actually step onto an episode and realize it means nothing, that there's really no difference. We're still just talking to ourselves. We're still just expressing everything that we are. That's really it. And to do that without being afraid of judgment, it's a lot of fun. So if you can join us on Patreon, it's only $5 a month. It's definitely worth it. You can get your feet wet. You can get in there, try it out. I think you'll like it. I know I enjoy seeing everybody that we talk to surpass their self-imposed limitations week by week by week. And it's so fun because for one person to do it encourages everyone else who is trying to do it. And then someone else does it and everyone else is encouraged. And it becomes just this ripple upon ripple upon ripple of change and encouragement. It's really quite amazing to watch. It really is. And so, yeah, if you can, join us on Patreon. That's enough about Patreon. I was talking about something very briefly before we started this, and it's because like I said, I went out for a journey today, and then I came home and I kind of had the house to myself before the roundtable. And so I went and smoked a joint, as I tend to do, and I was having a snack. And I was thinking about the Big Bang, specifically in terms of the fact that it's not anything that we can think of. I really like that. I really like the fact that science agrees whatever the Big Bang was, whatever came before all of this, wasn't anything else like anything that came after it. Like there was some significant differences that we just can't fucking understand. I think that's fine, except that we keep trying to think of it in the ways that we think of everything else. Like we keep thinking about what happened before the Big Bang in terms of physical objective reality. But what if it wasn't that? What if what came before the Big Bang was closer to just pure subjectivity? What if it had no way of being described as a physical thing whatsoever? And yet this is the expression of that thing. All of that potential manifest over space and time and 3 dimensions and the whole thing. I just find it really funny because that makes sense, because when you're in subjectivity, you can see anything. But when you start thinking about your body and the world, boom, you're in objective reality. So it's kind of like we have a foot in both. It's neat.
Yeah, it's interesting because as soon as you start saying it, my mind's like, yeah, but what did it look like? Like, what would that look like? And even this too, right? Because you can't really, when someone says like describe reality, you can't really do it. You can't say what it is right now. And so that's why, I mean, we have this conversation so often just about how subjectively none of this can be explained. We need the perception of division, the perception of duality in order to even attempt to describe it. And so even that period, before the Big Bang, we can discuss it absolutely, but I don't know, to me, it's like it could both be entirely quote unquote different from this, but also this is nothing about this is objective besides what we settle upon as objective. Like it's still perceived dualistically. So anything that is pure subjectivity before the Big Bang could be perceived dualistically too, right?
Without limitation, which is why I say it's the same thing. See, it's interesting because before the Big Bang, the moment of your birth and the moment of your death would both exist simultaneously in potential. So imagine all moments existing simultaneously in potential without any expression over time or space. It would make no sense. It would be like the most amount of information you could possibly imagine, like to the point of being overwhelming, beyond overwhelming. Like there would just be so much there and there's nothing, and it's not being unpacked. Well, everything after the Big Bang is all of that being unpacked, which is the beginning of your life and the end of your life now existing over time, right? Which is the expression of what existence is. But before that, in the Big Bang, it all existed at once. It still all exists at once. We're the experience of time.
I promise we don't start all of our Patreon groups in the fucking depths of the deep end for anyone listening. But it's always super fun to get into this stuff. And yeah, because we don't have any agenda and we're just going to take it wherever we're going to go. So I will pass it to Marie. Good to see you, Marie.
We need to start. No, we don't need to do anything, but I absolutely love when we jump right in. It's funny. I'm very excited to be here because I was gonna do, like, people asked me to do stuff after, and I was like, the only thing I want to do is like just talk about what is happening, right? And like, there's so many ways to say what I just said, but I am so excited that I get to do this. Like, I can't express that enough because I like so many of us have been, looking for a community of people to fuck it. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Can we just like cut the bullshit already? Like, what is happening? What are you talking about? Like, what? Stop. And so it's so fun and then it's just so freeing too, to get to have people who just like are nodding and right there with you and aren't like, well, you can just like sense, oh, okay, well, it's not really received here, or this isn't whatever, and that's fine. But like, wow, so, oh my God, it just jazzed me up to start there. Like, Ray, yes, like, oh my God, that, and so well said. That's what's so fun about this too, is, you know, not even pointing to my head, but in the mind, I'll like the thoughts, um, like, well, actively, it's having these conversations helped me find the words to communicate these things. And so, like, to hear you so beautifully demonstrate before the Big Bang, even that concept, time, silly, we know this, like, it's all happening at once. It isn't like, that's what's so crazy is like, ah, I don't know. I'm gonna pass it to somebody. Somebody pick it up, whoever's feeling it.
Yeah, I totally feel that, Marie. Like with all my heart, and um, it's one of the things I really appreciated about the retreat. It's that getting to meet all of you guys, more of me, and seeing what that's like, and seeing us embody that mentality, and see what kind of space that creates, because that's not the kind of space that we generally live in or work in or stuff like that. I mean, maybe Ray and Andrew work in that space more, but but yeah, it was really interesting to see that. It's been so many learnings since then from the retreat, to see what that dichotomy is like, and where some of my triggers were when they're not being expressed in the retreat, and then when I come back, and then seeing seeing more of that has been incredible. And it's like part of the, I was talking to Ray about this as well, and it's that like part of the reason why I don't want to go to a retreat, to make sure like so other people can go, because I really want people to like more of the dualistic unity community, or anyone, to come to these things and see what it's like, because it really is an experience that to see, like, it's funny because we talk about how reality is like, we can't really talk about it, like we do talk about it, but the words can only do so much, and I feel the same way about the retreats, that words can only do so much.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think that's I appreciate the sentiment with all of that, because it can be tough. It's like equally tough to explain the retreat afterwards, because it's not something that you can necessarily put into words. You can say what we did, what was talked about, all of those things, how people felt, we can utilize the reviews, which are super helpful, but there is absolutely difference between being there, like with everything. The description's not the description of the retreat, the explanation of the retreat is not the actual reality of the retreat or how it went or any of those things. But for those who were there, it's awesome to hear just, feedback and how it went as always. But with this conversation, it's exciting, that we're in a spot where we can have this conversation. And even sometimes I sit and I'm thinking about something and I'm with friends and, everyone has a limit. Everyone has a point where they're like uncomfortable. They're like, yeah. And Ray and I were talking about this yesterday, just how cool it is that there's so many people willing to dig in, to go beyond, like get to the point where it's like, oh boy, this is starting to be a little bit uncomfortable, and continue on despite that and not settle upon things. Because I was having a conversation with a friend a few days ago about just my willingness to be controversial with things or seem controversial, and whether I ever worry about that, and between that and how I have so much conviction with what I talk about. And it's because so many people in reality are settling upon things. Like they're settling upon things that just aren't the truth. And just because they're uncomfortable going beyond that. So they'd rather settle upon it, derive some semblance of false certainty that makes them comfortable, but that's not it. So they keep settling. And so we're just not settling. And that's really it. And that is inevitably going to make people uncomfortable. But anything we talk about is always along the same vein. Like it's always surrounding the same core recognition that you're not what you think you are. There's just so many people who do believe that they can know themselves. They sometimes are what they think they are. As long as they have a positive idea of themselves, then they're just fine. But there's always going to be limitations of that. There's always going to be repercussions to settling upon that. Every time you settle upon something, you're not in it. That's not what is. As soon as you know it, it's not the thing that is known. And we've just gone so deep into that illusion that people don't necessarily recognize that it still isn't it. So it's exciting to be able to have this conversation as often as we do with a bunch of people who are willing to continue on despite the discomfort. So anyway, should we get back into the Big Bang stuff? Or
actually, I wanted to share something. As I said, I had to go and pay the deposit on our Netherlands retreat, or the second deposit. Anyway, point is, the person who was helping me was asking me, so what is this? What are you doing? What's with the giant place out in the Netherlands? I'm like, oh, well, we have a podcast and we talk about all kinds of stuff. And we're just coming up with more ways for us to all kind of get together. And the look of being dissatisfied was priceless. Like you could tell, I was like, I'd really like to know more. And I'm like, okay. We talk about reasons we don't have to be anything other than what we are. And then we get together so we can do that. And she just cracked a smile and went, that sounds really nice. And I thought that was great, because that's exactly the point, is that it really is that simple. It really is just that, like being able to just have a conversation without needing to be smarter, without needing to be better, without needing to be perceived by anything whatsoever, in any way whatsoever. Be just having a conversation. You want to say weird shit, say weird shit. You want to, but it's just about being respectful. We can all do that. Like, that's really not that difficult. Aside from that, have a conversation. Don't worry about being judged, because nobody wants to be judged, so they're not judging you. It's like a giant karaoke night. It really is, except music is optional. Right? Instead of a microphone, it's just you. Just be you. And everybody wants you to be you, so they can be them. And that's what the groups are. That's what the conversation is as a whole. That's what the podcast is, as you can tell, as I just continue to ramble on and on and on and on and on, because why not? Right? This is really it. Just why not? Like, okay, does anybody here remember Tom Green? Yeah, okay. Tom Green was a thing. That was a thing that existed. That happened. People watched that shit. He's still a celebrity. If that can happen, then us sitting here having a fucking normal, rational conversation and not settling on anything is acceptable. It's acceptable, not just as a podcast, but as a pastime. And yet, for some reason, we all think going into a conversation that we have to dazzle the fucking socks off everyone. And we don't. In fact, not trying is going to dazzle the fucking socks off people because they all think they have to do the same shit. And if you're not doing it and you're telling them they don't have to fucking do it, you've changed the entire conversation for everyone. Just because you stopped trying to be something. And that's it. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be anything. And to make that a little easier, you're not any one thing.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of an insight I had today, just with in regards to social anxiety, and because I'm in LA now, and I've been meeting up with different people, different groups of people, hanging out with people, and like I don't really experience social anxiety in the way that I used to. I don't really get concerned going into interactions, but it hit me more clearly, and even when it does, because I'll still get semblances of like a little bit of nerves going into a situation with like a bunch of new people that I've never met and just like, you know, interacting, whatever. And it kind of hit me like in a different way. I talk about it a lot, but like not caring about what people think. Like anytime those nerves come up, there is a degree of caring what they're going to think of you. If you go into the situation and really just walk into the room and be like, I don't give a fuck if any of these people like me, there's not really space for concern. Like there really isn't. And I know we've said this so many times, but it just hit me differently today. Like I really don't care what people think of me. I'm totally good being by myself when I'm by myself. I never need anyone to like me. And so I don't have to go into situations with any concern for people to like me, because there was still some degrees of that, despite it being a lot less. And so it just hit me differently. Like if I don't give a fucking shit if these people like me at all, then there is no room for concern for anything. And so even today, like I was walking around, went into a coffee shop and just like I don't know, it was just a different sort of feeling. And then beyond that, I wrote some notes down for a video just about how sometimes I feel like we use the phrase I have social anxiety as an excuse. Like we think we're a bad conversationalist or bad at interacting with people. And so we just say that we have social anxiety instead of admitting that we haven't had that many conversations with people. And so therefore we're not that good at it. So maybe you don't have social anxiety. Maybe you just think you're bad at having a conversation and unwilling to improve because you've gone into a few, felt like it didn't go well. But the reality is that you're just judging yourself. No one else, there's no objective best way to have a conversation. There's no right way to have a conversation. There is no such thing as a good or a bad conversationalist. It's very dependent. And if you have two bad conversationalists together, they're probably going to end up having a great conversation. It's like, two negatives multiplied together make a positive. And so I don't know, it hit me in a different way, that too. So for whatever reason, I was just having more insights about that, how much we just use saying I have social anxiety as an excuse to avoid going into situations in which we don't think we're good at something because we haven't done it that many times. And I think I get it. I'll definitely get pushback for this video, and I'm going to try and caveat it in different ways to get ahead of the people who are inevitably going to comment on it. But I do think that a lot of times, a lot of people just use it as an excuse. And if you're just willing to go in and be shitty at conversations and care a little bit less about how people are going to perceive you based on how good or bad you have that conversation, maybe you don't really have social anxiety. Maybe you're just using it as an excuse. So anyway, right, unless you got anything, I'll pass it to Jazz.
This reminds me of something either you, Ray, or Andrew mentioned about how if you were just on an island by yourself, you wouldn't be thinking so much about how well you're doing something. You would just be doing it. Like if you were building a boat to get off the island or to go to another island, then you would just try to build one, and if it didn't work out, if it like broke or something, you would learn and you would try again, and you wouldn't stop to think about yourself, about how like shitty my boat is compared to someone else's boat and stuff like that. And it wouldn't even be a process of like, you wouldn't even necessarily consider that a failure. I mean, you might, but it's not failure, because it's like it's the entire process. Like you're always learning and growing. It's always moving forward. it's you're not going back, which I think people seem to perceive it as, because they're so busy thinking about themselves. And you were talking about bad conversationalist, which I was thinking about when you said that. I thought about how like when we were kids, we were like chatterboxes. Like we wouldn't stop talking, and it wasn't until we started thinking about ourselves and like being perceived as being judged and stuff, that we were like, oh, am I saying the right thing, or am I saying like something that has value and stuff? And it's funny because yeah, I do these Patreon calls all the time, but this is like my second roundtable, and the first one was right after the retreats. I was kind of riding a high. So this one feels a lot more I don't know, in my like natural habitat, I would say. And so like a few hours before this roundtable, I was having all these thoughts, and like I was watching a video of Krishnamurti's video on choice. And I was having thoughts about like, oh, maybe if I get insights from her, then I'll like talk about that at the roundtable, and like I don't know, like it'll make me more valuable or something. And I'm like, no, fuck, stop that. Like, there's no need. Like, I'm just here to enjoy the fucking video. Like, this is a cool video about choice, so let's just watch the video. And what ended up happening was I took a nap, so I didn't end up actually watching the video. But I have been having thoughts leading up to this roundtable that have been making me sweat, and like I got ice cream to help with that as well. I don't know if it did help actually, because it made me feel, I don't know, like I love ice cream. So but yeah, it's just funny how there's all these thoughts, because I have conversations all the time in real life, or like outside of this podcast, I mean, and I never, or I don't tend to think too much about it. But then when it's like here and on a podcast, on a live stream, and all these stakes are all of a sudden higher about what it means about me, and like the truth is, it's always just me talking to myself. And so it's lately I've been having this recognition of like, I don't care what I think of me. And it's like I feel like it's two sides of the same coin, of like, I don't care what people think of me, and it's also the other side is like, I don't care what I think of me. And it's because it's all just thoughts, you know. And yeah, so that has, I don't know, kind of relaxed me a little bit into the moment, the here and now. And like there's thoughts as well about like what I would say, because I would have like, for example, one small thought, and I'm like, but maybe I should have like a bigger thought so that I can talk for longer. Like there's like expectation that I should be talking for a certain amount of time, and it's like I've been talking about I don't know what for the past I don't know how many minutes, and I had no idea that I would. But yeah, it's just it's just funny how much easier it becomes to talk when you let go of expectations of having to be insightful, or having to talk for a certain amount of time, or anything like that. And it's kind of just relaxing into that, like I normally do in conversations with friends and stuff. And yeah, it's nice.
It is nice. Absolutely. I just wanted to take a moment to recap something that just happened there that I really appreciated, which was, so I started thinking I needed to be more insightful. And then I decided to just say, fuck it, and take a nap. I just thought that was very zen. I really like that.
That is pretty funny. Yeah, I guess that's how much I relaxed into it.
Yeah, that's just it right there. I resonate with you a lot with the wanting to derive insights from a video. I used to do that like early on in content stuff, when I would just, especially when I had 6 months at one point early on with TikTok where I forced myself basically to make a video every single day. And there were, obviously pros and very obviously cons to that. And there was a lot of pressure I was putting on myself to be insightful. And I got to a point where I was, anytime I would come across, I was reading a book, watching a video, in the back of my head, I was like, how can I, reword some of this to get a insight out of it or something. And I would. And yeah, it was just a ton of ridiculous pressure. And they weren't really insights because they were just what someone else was talking about. And so once you let go of that desire, like that's once that desire to derive anything out of anything subsides, that's when they start hitting you. As soon as you're like trying to think of something, you're on a walk and you're like, all right, let's think of some insights. And you're like, fuck that shit, I'm just going to enjoy this walk. Then all of a sudden they start hitting you. It's always that counterintuitive nature. So yeah, I totally feel you. But with with very, very zen of you to try and then take a nap because fuck it. Might as well, right? Amanda.
Oh my God, loving the conversation. I was just thinking, and I'm like, I don't think anybody can ever really be bad at anything. Think about when you start a new job. You always feel like you're bad at the job, but it's always because you're unpracticed. You haven't had enough time focusing your energy and time and attention in that direction. So it feels like you've started this new job, or let me give a different analogy. It's like you are a sculptor and you've just encountered this slab of marble. You have this inspiration. You see beyond the slab, but then you think, oh, because the slab is not a sculpted sculpture, it's not as good as the person that's next to me who's already halfway through their slab or already completed with it. And it's like, it's just hilarious how many times I would tell myself that I couldn't put things down easily, but I was putting down opportunities, potential, dreams down with lightning speed and holding on to trauma, saying I couldn't let go of the trauma, but I could let go of the potential. I could let go of the opportunity and the dreams, and I could let that shit go with no thought, and not realizing that all the times that I walked away from slabs of marble, it was when I was expecting myself to have the sculpture before going through the process of sculpting, of the process of being inspired, of being uninspired, because not everything is going to be so smooth from beginning to end. There are so many projects that I have picked up and put down, picked up and put down, and picked up and put down countless times. And that whole process was me being honest with myself that, yes, I am inspired to dance. Yes, I am inspired to sing. You know what? I don't want to sing a fucking a note. You couldn't get me to sing a note sometimes. And other times you can't shut me the fuck up. So it's like, I have to give myself space to be inspired, to be the sculpture, and to walk away because I'm not connected to it anymore. But I've never actually been bad at anything. So when people tell me, oh, you're good at drawing, or you're good at singing, or you're good at this, and I'm like, I've been doing it for 20 years. I don't really know if it's good or bad, but we're having fun. We're in it. We're still connected to it. We still keep picking it back up. So we must be getting some kind of enjoyment, but only picking it back up because we wanted to pick it back up, not to get something or achieve something or to have it be a means to an end, but just doing it despite being bad in the beginning and not caring at all, because I didn't need to care to be in it, to be in it, to feel it, to express it, to love it, to hate it, to walk away, to get bored with it. I just let myself feel whatever I wanted to feel. So anytime I think about things that I am quote unquote bad at, it's all things that I just haven't focused my attention on. And that's pretty much it, because there is nothing, and I always tell people this, there is nothing that I do that another person couldn't also do. And if they did it for the same time as me, they would be at the same place as me right now. But you're looking at the sculpture post being a slab of marble. You weren't there before. You weren't there all the times I walked away. And that's why you think that I'm not bad, but it's not that I'm not bad. It's that I've spent more time dancing with the topic than you might know. And that's the only difference between me and someone who might perceive themselves to be bad at anything that I'm perceived at being good at.
Yeah, well said. I had a very similar insight a few days ago that I was also another video I'm thinking about is starting off with something like you're good at everything eventually. And like it's pretty much the same thing you were talking about right there. Like you're good at everything eventually, because how many things do we think we're bad at? And what's our evidence of being bad at it? Well, maybe we've tried 10 times, maybe not even, maybe we've tried it 5 times, maybe twice, maybe once. Maybe we've tried it once. Maybe we've never even tried it. And we're just like, yeah, I'm bad at that. Maybe once. And there was one time where we didn't do that great. It's like, you're going to say you've tried something one time and you're going to say you're bad at it and then settle upon it because you desire that certainty so bad that now you have these things that you're bad at. You've barely spent any fucking time on. If you compare the things that you think you're good at versus the things you're bad at, it's just a bunch of things you've spent way more time doing and a bunch of things you haven't spent almost any time doing. And so if you can separate that desire to, be good at it or perform well, or how other people are going to perceive you, you're willing to go into things and just try it again and again and again and again. Like time and attention is all it takes to get better at anything. And if you're willing to spend 10 times the amount of time on something, you may not be the best in the world, but you're going to be a hell of a lot better than you were when you first started. So it's a super powerful insight to recognize that you aren't, the settling upon the idea that you're bad at something is just giving up, basically, is just not trying it that many times. Most likely, typically, like most people really don't try more than a couple times before they're so overwhelmed with how they're going to be perceived for doing it in a certain way. They don't continue on. And they're just like, oh yeah, I'm bad at that. It's like, how many times have you tried? I can almost guarantee it's almost none.
Yeah. Or how many times have you messed up and you were so harsh on that one mistake that you didn't want to try again? Because of all the things that I might have spent a lot of time with, there are so many attempts that I've crumpled up drawings. I've sung a note and laughed at myself because we couldn't hit the pitch. I have danced and misstepped. Like I give myself room to make mistakes because I'm not expecting myself to be perfect, because I'm not just this guarantee. I can't guarantee good results or bad results, whether I'm the one that's pushing myself to do it or asking someone else to do something. It's just being that space to just be whatever it is. And that's why I love my relationship with my hobbies, is because there's no pressure to do it any particular way. We're doing it because we're feeling it, and we're feeling it, and so we're doing it. And so it ends up being this dance between feeling it and being inspired and going back to it, but giving myself space to just not be in it, to not do it perfectly, because it's not about perfection, which is so funny because I've been having this insight about perfection over the last few days, over and over, just how things always feel perfect when I don't want to change them. It's not that something fits a criteria to be perfect. It's just that I do not want to change it. And because I don't want to change it, I perceive it as being perfect. But that I have felt that in so many different ways over the last few days and weeks, that I'm just like, damn, imperfection is just another thought, because there are so many things I would never change, so many things I thought I would change, but in retrospect, I'm like, no, because it brought us here. And so here is fucking perfect. So it just doesn't matter what here looks like. It's just always something else to enjoy.
Yeah. Well said. I love it. That, and beyond that, perfection and imperfection are just words. That's all they are. We like to think that they're more than that, but they're not. None of the things are ever more than that. We have an idea that we build on top of it. It's like perfection and imperfection aren't even things that exist. Things just are what they are. And it's our perspective. And just like you said, it's just when we don't want to change something that we're like, oh yeah, that's perfect. And that's it. Like it's all subjective. It's hilarious. Ray, if you got anything, or I'll pass to PMAC.
Yeah, I firstly just want to echo Marie's excitement of just like being here and just being part of the conversation and having, that outlet just to be yourself, and what everybody said in terms of like seeing other people do it. It's just like osmosis. It just gives you the permission that you didn't know that you needed, just to like walk in your kind of authenticity as well. And then I guess echoing the insights piece, like what you said, Andrew, just cracked me up. Like, let me think of some insights. And I think it is very like indicative of our culture just to like regurgitate shit. Like, I feel like Christianity is just, if you actually could measure like how many people deeply understand what they're connected to in those insights, most of it is just, oh, I heard this thing and it's going out my mouth now because somebody said it and it must be true, so I can, scream it at people on the sidewalk on Friday night and hope that they somehow understand something that I don't even understand myself. But yeah, as well, like what I hear in Amanda is just like complete removal of the should or the need. And so it's like you're just dipping in and out in each moment as things inspire you and as you're enthusiastic. And again, like in our culture, it's just not the thing. There is just so much need and should to prove yourself. So you'll get inspired, you'll start something, and then just get very attached. Like, oh, I told people I was doing this thing, so like I need to see it to fruition, even though I'm not inspired anymore, and like just clinging and grasping to it. And I think it's like a defense mechanism in the West. We've kind of like removed all space, like just decided that there is no winter season anymore. It's just like summer all the time. We've got to make hay while the sun shines. And you get like 2 days on the weekend, potentially, if you're in like the standard 9 to 5, and those days are filled with chores. And so by the time you're actually at a place in which like you're rested and maybe like you could lean into some of those deeper insights, you're already like back into the grind, and you'll go on a holiday for 2 weeks a year or whatever, and then you'll immediately get sick because life in your body is like, great, we can like process some of this shit now that you're not going to work anymore. And I feel like getting sick is like actually like the biggest blessing. Like you get the most insights and the most time of reflection, and all of that stuff starts to like bubble up to the surface. So it's like by the time you're finished being sick is when you can really like mull it all over and let it dance inside you before the insights really start kicking in, and that enthusiasm and inspiration starts translating into action. And by that time your holiday is finished and you're back to work. So it's like you've done the groundwork and then you've just like packed all the shit on top of it again. And I think that is like the biggest lesson that I've been learning the last 6 months is just like rest. And as well as what Jazz said, just letting go of the idea of like trying to find the insights, because that's the biggest thought that will stop them from coming to you, is just like, oh, there is an insight out there that I can grasp and hold on to and then never let go of. And the more you have that mentality, the more they run away from you, because they are these things that are just always around, and you can kind of like tap into something in a moment. You'll see it, you'll get that, I don't know, that inspiration, I guess is the easiest way to call it. You'll get that insight, but then you have to be willing to let it go and move on to the next, because it's never the same. Like it's never ever the same moment, and it's never the same insight, and it's never going to be the same feeling. And so the more you cling, the more you're like pulling your attention elsewhere, right? So yeah, that's my little rant for today.
Wow, that was awesome. Absolutely. Talk about just letting go and expressing what you are and just seeing where it goes. And that's the whole thing. Just one thing. It's funny. When I was younger, somebody used to always comment like, you jump around a lot, Ray. You go from one subject to a lot of like to another quite a bit. It's like, yeah, because they're all fucking connected. Like, stop being so goddamn boring. But it's true. Like, we learn in a non-linear way. Things that we learn in one aspect of our life apply in different aspects of our life. Things that we've done in one aspect of humanity apply to other aspects of humanity. It's all important. I mean, the mentality that we tackle everything with is based on a number of different things. And so we have to go around and around and around. And I just wanted to say that, as always, BMAC, it's great to have you here. That was a nice one.
Levi, given the number of hands, we're gonna keep it rolling. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you guys as well. Always nice to have these conversations. I'm definitely feeling a little bit of extra pressure here on this live show, but I mean, that's how it is. I'm trying to lean into it. I mean, it's yeah, in this conversation, I'm just picking, oh, I can say something about that, and I can say something about that, say something about that, and and then I see my hand is getting closer, and it's just yeah, my mind is going crazy, and then I'm like, yeah, I just have to drop it all, right? So yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, there are some things that I had a pretty cool insight today. Actually, I wanted to tell you guys about, and it's quite related to what you're talking about, Amanda, with like giving space to like whatever you feel like doing in a way. And I've been struggling with procrastination at work, and procrastination has been like a big thing in my life, I would say. Like it's been like this block often that just makes me fucked later, basically, because I'm postponing stuff, and then I have to sit up all night and do some stuff, and I do it, but yeah, it's not optimal. And today I was like, I have this one task that I've been like postponing literally like for 2 weeks, like, and I was sitting there today and I'm like, but now I'm going to do it, and I'm just feeling this procrastination or whatever. It's just not happening, and it's insane. Like I can't really explain it. And then I just really like, because you never like, I've heard it so many times, like, procrastination isn't necessarily bad. Like, I don't know, I don't know what outcome would come of me waiting 2 weeks to do that thing. And that just really, really hit me deep today. And honestly, like, I was alone in my living room. I was listening to some music because I was procrastinating. And then I had this realization, and it just really released something. And I just started laughing out loud in the living room. And literally, I would, like 2 years ago, I would admit myself to the hospital with a reaction like that all by myself. But like, it was really strange. And then a little bit after that, I just let myself procrastinate. Like, it was no longer procrastination. I was just not feeling. It was just, I don't know. It was amazing. And then I got an email, because I checked the email, and then it was like, oh fuck, I need to do that. And I felt like, I'll go do that. And then I worked for a couple of hours really efficiently, like not with the stuff that I've been procrastinating, but with, like, it was really good. Like, so I don't know. I just really, really, really felt like sharing that because, yeah, procrastination isn't necessarily bad. It just really hit me. I don't
That
know.
is awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. And this is something I know, Levi, we've talked about a number of times in the groups, especially, is that, we tend to take whatever process it is that we're going through, and then we personalize it like we're doing something fucking wrong, right? Not recognizing that procrastination is really, it's a safety mechanism, unloading some of the weight until you can get to a point where you have enough space to just feel like you can do it, right? And that's it. It's just that we take ownership. We're like, but that's not what should be happening. And it's like, you don't know what should be happening at all. All you know is the process that you're a part of. But adding weight is always going to make that procrastination more and more tempting. Always, right? We never get that at all. This is something I've said to clients previously. They're like, I have no momentum. I have no motivation whatsoever. It's like, what should I be striving for? It's like, nothing. You should stop striving. Like, if anything, you got to start thinking about all the expectations you're trying to live up to, because that's what's dragging you down. That's why you can't move. That's a brilliant insight.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, so nice to share it there with you guys.
Yeah, I love that one, Levi. And I've had similar types of things, because I think everyone deals with procrastination to a degree. And really what anything comes down to is what mentality can unload the weight, what mentality can release the weight, and letting go of the idea that what you're doing is wrong is usually the quickest way. Like, point A to point B of letting go of that weight is letting go of the idea that there's anything wrong. Because again, like with everything else, procrastination is not this objective thing. It's just a word, just a phrase we use to describe when we're doing something that we think we shouldn't be doing, as opposed to, and not doing something we think we should be doing. And that's settling upon a certainty, as if we could ever possibly know. And so because we've settled upon that, it builds this weight, and it's all just an illusion. It's all just based on our own made up expectations inside of ourselves. So procrastination, as we're doing it, it could be the most perfect thing we could be doing in that moment. We don't know. It's just settling upon this idea that we should be doing something other than what we're doing. And as you let go of that, well, as you maintain that, then it just kind of perpetuates it, because then you're just adding weight every time you're like, I should be doing something else. I should be doing something else. You're always doing something. You're always doing something. You always have the opportunity to derive insights from whatever you're doing. But as long as you're maintaining this idea that you should be doing something else, it's like it constricts any insights from arising. Like you can learn from literally anything. You can learn from, pacing around your room when you should be cleaning it. It's like, I don't know. You're getting steps in, I guess. That's positive, like that's productive. But then we just have this such blinders on what we think we should be doing. And that's all it is. You don't know what you should be doing. You don't know what's best. You don't know where things are heading. You don't know what you could possibly learn from the given situation. And so it always comes down to what mentality is going to free you from the weight. What mentality is going to alleviate the weight. And it's letting go of the idea that there's ever anything wrong with what you're doing. And that's what allows you to continue on making shifts and changes. It's that idea that we're doing something we shouldn't be doing that keeps us feeling like we're stuck despite not being stuck. It's just a perception that we're stuck. And so it's cool to see once you start to realize that more and more, it's just how much it is just your self dialogue telling yourself you're doing something wrong. And then as that stops, all of a sudden there's so much energy and ability to do anything. And then you realize, well, this thing, like my room got super messy the last couple of days, and now there's still some stuff lying. But this morning I cleaned it, and I was like, oh, I should clean it. And I was like, well, when I'm gonna clean it, I'm gonna clean it when I clean it. It's gonna be now when I clean it, so I might as well do it now. And then you just do it. And then once you start, it's like that first step. Then you just kind of get into the flow of it, and then it's done. You're like, oh, all right, cool. And that's it. But as long as you're thinking that you're doing something wrong, it's going to be really hard to just drop that. But as that's dropped, then you're back in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Levi, would you like to add anything else? Because I do have one follow-up comment to everything that you just expressed.
Yeah, it just kind of hit me, because this kind of like I don't know where things are going. I've been using that for quite a while, like as part of my process of letting go of stuff and my opinions of stuff and how things should go or not go. And I feel like it's been working, but it's like this was kind of a new avenue. So I don't know if it's like, I just felt it really deeply. It was like hidden in a way. I wasn't able to let go of it before. So I don't know if it's like deeper, or if it's just you have to like go find it for many different things, or it doesn't really matter. But it's just a thought I had as well.
Yeah, that's great. It really is. It's the same process. This is something that Andrew and I have talked about a number of times, especially early on, where he's like, are we ever going to run out of things to say? I'm like, we've been saying the same things. Like it hasn't really changed. It just kind of changes in terms of where you're looking at it from, but it's really the same insights over and over and over again. It's just, it didn't hit before, or I didn't have the clarity to see it before, or I wasn't willing or ready to see it before. Now I am. Now it's like I can feel the corner of it. I'm going to pull on that a little bit, right? That kind of thing. And that's really what it is. It's just going through that over and over and over again, developing that sensitivity for all the things you haven't turned over yet. And that's it. Is every time you do, you feel a bit freer. But that's what I wanted to say very quickly. The feeling that you associated with this is the point. That feeling where all of a sudden it clicks and it's like the weight just came off. It's like somebody just took a whole fucking blanket off of you and you can see more light. That feeling is what guides you. That feeling is what continues to propel you towards more questions and more willingness. Nobody can convince you of that feeling. You can only feel it to greater and greater degrees. And when you do, then you're like, fuck, something's working, because you can actually feel it come off. It's not like somebody saying like, one day you're going to feel great about everything. nobody wanted, like, don't believe that Honest Ed's cars, that kind of shit, right? Like, you never believe the snake oil, but when you feel it actually happen, and it's not like your life has magically become beautiful overnight and everything's just fucking pleasant all the time, but you can see the difference. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I can breathe. I feel like I can move. I feel like my life is my choice again, which is really the big deal. It really comes down to how much weight are you carrying because you feel like you don't have a choice. And are you willing to put that down? Are you willing to put down that excuse? And that's really what we're doing over and over again by priority, recognizing, well, if it's not my life, what the fuck am I doing? And that's it. That's a very light feeling. And it has nothing to do. It's funny. Somebody was asking about this earlier about in terms of not giving a fuck what others think. Not giving a fuck what others think in response to what others think is still giving a fuck about what others think. Truly not giving a fuck about what others think is just being you. It's setting your life as a priority. It has nothing to do with others or how they respond to you, right? At all. That's genuinely being yourself, and that's genuinely not giving a fuck. That's why I often joke when Melissa would ask me, for example, like, you know, what about the neighbors? What are they going to say? And I'm like, we have neighbors? Like, it's a shock to me. Like, it's, and only in that, why would their opinion mean anything about what I do?
Exactly. Well said. Jazz.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that, Levi, about the hand being closer and having a bunch of thoughts and things you want to say, and then just dropping them because you just want to listen. Yeah, I appreciate what you said that about the feeling, Ray, because it's given me a greater and greater appreciation for the feeling of suffering, because it's been such a useful tool in just recognizing what's happening when I'm getting caught up and stuff. And during the retreat, I was not suffering ever. Just kidding. But it was like a very like huge lift off my shoulders, it felt like. And so when I came back and I had all these hobbies and activities and stuff, and I was just like not doing any of them, and I was like questioning why I did them ever in the first place. And like during the retreat, we were doing so much stuff, and like every moment like mattered, and we were always there like all the time, and we were doing like so many different things during the day as well, like bonfires, going like it's like 10 different activities in a day minimum, I felt like. And uh and it just felt like each day was like a month long because of how full each day was. And even something like setting up the table was felt like its own activity and stuff, because we were so involved in it. And so when I came back and I started looking at all the stuff that I'm doing and realizing that a lot of the stuff that I was doing was to, I don't know, increase my self-worth or gain some validation or something, or make me better in some way, like all these different activities like stretching and working out. And I don't know, like some part of it was also holding on to some idea of who I think I am, someone who plays games, so video games as well. And so I was just not doing anything for a few days. Like I was sleeping for most days, most of the time. And I'm grateful that I'm not working at the moment. So that kind of allowed me that space for me to process that. And yeah, it was nice to come back to, because I am getting back into stuff. Like I started stretching more, and it was so nice that the latest stretching session I had, because first of all, I had no expectations of what being good at stretching looks like, because I was not having this expectation that I should be able to do a fucking split in like, I don't know, already, because that would provide me some value. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter what this leads to. All that matters is right now how it feels in my muscles and stuff. And it was just so nice because it didn't feel like I was bad at stretching, and it didn't feel like I had to be good at stretching. It was just the stretching. It was just the muscle stretching. And yes, it kind of leads back into the topic of procrastination and how I feel like I have not been procrastinating as much on those things. And it's funny because even when I am procrastinating on stuff, there's always lessons to be learned. I'm finding, like for example, I hadn't cooked myself dinner for like ever since the retreat, and the last time I did cook myself, like first and last time I cooked myself dinner was last night, or no, 2 nights ago, and it came from the fact that I was like, I don't know, not feeling super well nourished, and I was just ordering takeout, and I wasn't even like really wanting to get takeout, but it was just that I just didn't have the food at home, so I had to get takeout. And so I was just not feeling the food that I would normally get for takeout, and I was also not feeling, I don't know, super well nourished, and I was feeling like I was maybe sleeping a lot just because of that, and I wanted to do other stuff like stretch or like learn how to swim and stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that I was, I don't know, excited about, but it felt like I didn't have the energy for it. And so it was like, oh, maybe I don't know, I want to cook now. So then I started cooking, and I was just so super into the process of cooking as well. And it's so interesting how the time that I got back into cooking, and then I was just, I don't know, messed up one of the steps, and I was judging myself for it. I'm like, fuck, why did I do that? Like, I never make that mistake. Of course, if I don't cook for like I don't know how long, then of course I'm going to be making these mistakes. And it's like, no, it's okay. Like, of course, of course this is going to happen. And not even judging myself for not cooking for however long, because all these expectations of what I should be doing and how I should be living my life. I should be like a self-sustained individual who should be feeding myself, and all these ideas of what that looks like. And I definitely was like held on to these ideas of what it means to be taking care of myself. And if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm judging myself for not taking care of myself. And then that just repeats the cycle. Like I'm just prolonging whatever is happening more. And so that feeling of like judging myself and realizing that I don't need to be doing that's optional, and that it doesn't mean anything about me. It's just that process unfolding and letting myself learn the lessons of why I want to cook. And it's not because I should be cooking because I am a self-sustaining individual or whatever, or like I am a healthy person or whatever. It's because I just want to eat some dumb food. And this lesson played out as well on my couch, because I sometimes lay on my couch towards the end of the night, and I just pass out on my couch. And I was like looking at that, like, why do I just sleep on my couch instead of going on my bed? And a lot of times it's because, or most of the time it's because I do my skincare routine at night, and so a lot of times I just don't feel like it. It's like, oh, like I really don't want to do that. I would rather just pass out on the couch than go into the bathroom, do a 5-minute routine. It's like takes 5 minutes, and then go to the bed and sleep on my bed. That would be like more comfortable. And so like that had been happening for like months and months, and like now I just like learned from that. It's like, okay, so I know what that looks like. I just end up not doing the routine anyways and sleeping on the couch. So I could just get up, go to the bathroom, or not. I literally don't have to do it, but I can, because it only takes 5 minutes, and then I do it, and then I go to the bed, and I just sleep like so much earlier now than I used to.
Yeah, I resonate with I'll go with the last point you made with sleeping on the couch, because I used to do that in college, especially getting home kind of drunk, and my room was on the second floor, and so a lot of nights I just feel like, you know what, I'm just gonna sleep on the couch tonight, and I just lie down and fall asleep. But actually, when I was in Costa Rica, there was I had a bed. The place had like a big, pretty comfy king bed, but then it had a futon. It was rock hard, and there was like this wooden thing going down the middle. It was like not very comfortable at all. And I slept on it one night because my mom visited me down there, and so she slept in the bed and I slept on the futon. And I had like 2 weeks left there after she left, and I kept sleeping on the futon because it didn't feel good when I was sleeping necessarily. And I started sleeping on my back more. But then when I woke up, I would feel like way more refreshed, and I wouldn't, because it wasn't super comfortable, I wouldn't like snooze my alarm and stay in bed. I would just fucking get up. And so it's funny that even with something like that, you know, sleeping on the couch, we can have this idea that, oh, I should be going to my bed, but who's to say that? It's a different experience that you can have. And it really is just like so many things come down to letting go of the idea that you're living life wrong. Like there is no right way. There's no right way to be healthy. There's no right way to live. There's no right way to do anything. If anything, if I will say, you know, there's a way that will be make life easier for you. It's to not judge yourself when you do something in a certain way. Like that's all it comes down to. So that involves letting go of the idea that there's a right way to live, because any way you live, if you think there's a right way and you don't do that, then you judge yourself. That's, if anything, that's, you know, the wrong way. But even that isn't, you know, don't judge your judgments when you do get caught up in that. But yeah, if I'd say anything, it's that. It's just live for you. But so many of us don't even know that. So many of us just get caught in thinking there is, judging ourselves when we don't, and then beating ourselves up. And then, you know, the spiral, the cycle continues. So it's yeah, super powerful to let go of that idea that there's anything wrong with anything that you're doing, because that's, I think, the healthiest way to live. So many of our unhealthy habits are derived from thinking there is a right way to live that we're not living. It's not from thinking there's the unhealthy way to live is the right way. You know, it's always from settling upon a right way and thinking that we're not meeting those standards.
Yeah, actually, it's really interesting. And this is a point that I think we often disregard when we're going into hardship, or we're afraid of going through hardship, like, I don't know, getting evicted or breaking up with our loved one, or whatever it might be, just being on our own, whatever it is you're afraid of. But the point is that there's a process of going through that shit. Like when it does happen, every time I've ever lost everything in my life, there has been this process of digging my way out of that, or rebuilding, let's just say. And that process has always been influenced by whether or not I'm pissing and whining like a little bitch. It really does make a difference over whether or not I'm going to crawl out of that hole quickly or not. Not only based on what I'm going to do about it, but how people are going to react to what I'm doing about it. And how much is that true when you see somebody struggling through something and they're like, fuck, God damn it, nothing's ever working out right for me. Why me? Fuck that person, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to help that fucking person. You want to run away. You're like, I don't need that shit. I work hard enough and I don't piss and whine like that. And you fuck off. Right. And of course you do, because that person's going to put all of their weight on you. Right. And yet you beat that person not do that. Treat everything you're going through with some stoic fucking dignity. For example, it's not like your friends aren't aware that you're going through hardship, but you're not sitting there pissing and whining and expecting them to feel bad for you or reach in and save you. All of a sudden, they're willing to. All of a sudden, they see you facing that shit and not asking for a hand up. And they go, you want a hand? And immediately you're like, I don't want to put any pressure on them. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm offering. Right? It makes a difference. It really does. And I know it doesn't dawn on us as we're going through that, but it's true. The harder you make it on yourself, the harder you make it on everyone else to help you.
Mark?
All right, I've had about 1,000 things go through my head the last 45 minutes, so I don't know what's going to be here, but whatever. I did want to share one thing in relation to what Amanda was saying earlier about being able to learn stuff, because I heard something today, or I heard it a few days ago, and I think I'll probably remember it for a long time, but I really liked it. And basically, the person said, if you have one eye on the goal, then you only have half your attention on what you're doing. And, you know, and going back to what Amanda was saying about, you know, just practicing something and enjoying it. It's like when I took piano lessons, I wanted to play like my sister so badly that I judged myself throughout the 5 years I took lessons and pressured myself and felt guilty when I didn't practice and all that stuff. I was miserable the whole time and I gave it all up. But I didn't have to do that, of course, because I didn't have to do all those things. And hearing Amanda earlier reminded me, because I kind of forget this, in high school for about 2 years, I've never had what I thought was any innate drawing ability, but I had to take an art class for high school. And I actually got interested in it, and I worked really hard for like 2 years. I practiced all the time, and I got really good at it. And I can't find those drawings. I think they're in someone's basement somewhere. But, just see, when talking about drawing at the retreat and then hearing what Amanda was saying, it's so true. That proved, just remembering that myself proved to me that I was able to really do something I was proud of. And it wasn't like I just whipped it out. I just practiced it because I enjoyed it through the process of practicing it. I didn't expect myself to do well. I didn't punish myself. I didn't judge myself. I was enjoying trying to make it, trying to do it. And so that was enjoying the process and the journey, and not having that one eye on the goal that made everything better. And I think back, and I'm not going to say I wish I'd have done piano that way, because it is what it is. And maybe I don't want to play piano. Maybe I don't want to have one in my house. They're too big. My mom and dad were always trying to get one out of their house. So, I have no problems with that. But I really liked that quote, and I think it's true. It's just, it's just right here. It's just right now. It's just this journey. It's like procrastination. It's like Levi. And I've thought about you since our conversation last Friday several times this week. But it's the same thing with me. I've eliminated should, I've eliminated not. I've really, really made a lot of progress. I know it'll never end, but in not judging myself within my own home. I actually talking to my buddy, I keep trying to increase how much I expose him to gradually, and he's doing well with it. But we talked about procrastination this weekend, and I'm like, you can see that my house still is in relatively good order, but whereas I used to go around and feel guilty and get mad at myself and make myself do stuff and tell myself I better do that right now, or I can't sleep well tonight if I don't get the sink cleaned out. I don't do any of that anymore, ever. And I told him, I said, if I'm walking through the house and I see where I've left something out and my immediate thought is should or need, I just walk on past it and let it go. And I really do. And that's how I started it out at first. And now, it has gotten really automatic, but, procrastination, as we were saying, it's just something that we make up and apply to ourselves and say, hey, you're this bad person. Procrastination's bad. You're bad. And that's, and you just adopt that identity and live your life that way. And it's this absolute bullshit crap. Absolutely. I mean, my house still looks relatively good, but I do things when I do them, and I do them in a reasonable amount of time, but I don't pressure myself over it. I actually look at things. I used to say I can't go to bed with dishes in the sink. Well, guess what? I can do it just fine, and I'm sleeping great. Sometimes I go ahead and I put them up though, it just depends, but sometimes I don't. Either way is fine. So I'm so glad you had that, Levi. I really am, because, and of course it'll just build and build. You'll work on it forever, but God, it feels good. I know people get sick of me saying I'm dropping stuff, but I'm still letting stuff go, and gosh, it feels good. And I've discovered more and more that it's just thinking that fucks everything up for me. I just don't, if I'm spending time thinking beyond making my next move or my next step, or how do I put this in this bowl so I can eat it, or whatever, I'm spending too much time on it. I need to do something else. I need to take action somewhere, and that's what's happened to me. And I'm not saying that means I need to get up and do something. I just need to come out of that thinking and see where I'm at and decide what I want to do with where I'm at. It's like now going back to what Jazz was saying, this is what happens when a lot of people have hands raised and you wait and listen and listen. The reason things went by so slowly at the retreat was because we appreciated every single freaking moment, and we had all kinds of things to do. Now, were they exotic things? Were we jumping out of planes? Were we doing climbing skyscrapers? No, we were doing just basic, taking nice walks, having nice conversations, sitting here, reading this book over there. But we were appreciating every second. But just like the fact that I was able to sing in karaoke and got to the point where I couldn't wait till it was my turn, I can do the same thing here that I did there. I can do the exact same thing by appreciating what I'm doing. And some people think it sounds ridiculous. I've just started running my mouth a little bit more to my friends. One of my friends was like, I hope I can learn to mow the yard this year. I just can't stand doing it, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you certainly can. You just got to quit thinking about it the whole time and thinking about what you'd rather be doing and thinking about when you don't want, you just got to stop thinking about it. And you just got to get there and open your eyes and look around at what's around you. And it does change everything. It's not like you even have to convince yourself to appreciate your surroundings. If you are not embroiled in your thoughts, which is possible not to do, and you have your eyes open, you are going to be excited about what's around you, no matter it is. I just feel that way. At least that's my experience. You know, I remember years ago, I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to take pictures and I would work on it and then I just let it go. And, you know, recently I've started spending time doing that again. I didn't make myself, I didn't decide to. It's just I've been being more present when I'm outside with my dogs and when I'm walking around and I'm noticing things and I'm like, oh, I want to, you know, it just occurred to me, you know, that I wanted to take a picture and really try and make it nice. So, you know, that's a lot, but I just continue, you know, a couple of months ago, I think I told some people in the group and Ray and Andrew, I'm like, you know, the one thing I'm hanging up on now is that every time in my life I've gotten to a place where I'm like, oh, I feel better about this. It was time limited, you know, a month or so later, everything went to shit again. And I was like, I guess that's the only thing that sticks in my head about what's going on with me now. I'm like, oh gosh, but I'm like, in my head, I really don't think so. Well, guess what? No, it's not. It's just getting better and better. I feel absolutely great. And I'm not saying I don't ever have anything. I trip, I hit this, you know, I still have the same things that everybody does, but I'm just not internalizing it. And to be honest, lately, sometimes I just kind of pretend like I actually am a god that's actually in some movie, that I'm a god and I'm down here and I'm, you know, like seeing this. And I just play that game with myself, but that's actually what the hell we're doing. So it makes it even extra super fun. But anyway, just stop thinking about stuff. Just stop giving it thought. Stop sitting there in it. If you're sitting in one place and you're in your head for more than just a few minutes, you probably need to look at that and see what you're going over. Well, you can't solve anything by thinking your way through it. It's just like the other thing, you know, I'm trying to look for insights and trying to find them. You'll never be able to find them or create them on your own. And everybody's already said that, but I've learned that myself. The last thing I'll bounce on is things unpacking on themselves again. That's another thing. It's just another sign you can't think your way through anything. I learned that at the retreat. I trusted when I was told that things would unpack on their own and I didn't have to manually do it because you can anyway. And it proved itself to be true. So I'm allowing things to do that even more and more now. So, you know, it just gets better and it just keeps building. Just stay in it. God, it's worth it. And I hope I touched on every single thing that I had thoughts about during this thing. So here we go.
Wow. Fuck yeah, Mark. God, I love listening to you talk, buddy. It was such a pleasure meeting you at the retreat. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the future events as well. It's inspiring. I like everybody here is talking about very much something that I have experienced and tried to communicate for a very long time. And everybody's looked at me like, no, it couldn't be that simple. I actually had somebody recently tell me like, not everything breaks down to identity and what I think about myself. It's like, it kind of does, you know, and that's really it. And you can put it down, but it's how it feels. And what I love about what you just said, Mark, and this is what my favorite part of this path is. It's not contingent on everything continuing to go well. In fact, when shit goes south the hardest, you look at it as more to learn. You actually, your whole perspective of it is, here's a big fucking meal to work through. Right. And it changes everything as opposed to, God, if the shoe drops, what will I do? You start looking for shoes. And it's just because you can learn shit from them. And it's a challenge if you want to take it. And it becomes, again, it's on your terms. It's the only thing. Existence becomes on your terms. You know, as you said, you walk around feeling like a god, which isn't not walking around feeling like you have total power and control over everything. It's funny. I was talking to Amanda recently and I was saying it's this weird mixture between the humility of knowing that you can't ever know. And on the flip side of that, hold my beer. I've got this with pretty much fucking everything. And it's not because there's any confidence like I'm better than everyone, but I'm here. Therefore, the best person for the job.
Exactly. Yeah. Fuck, Mark. I was getting goosebumps that whole time, man. So I never ever think that you have nothing to say because you are just everything you say is getting more and more beautifully put and just resonating so fucking well, just being in the flow of it. Like it's fucking incredible. And the shift, I think you mentioned how in the past it was always you'd feel good for like a month or so or whatever it was. And it's because for most people who go through that, it's the focus is on feeling better as opposed to getting better. and letting go of the idea that you should be feeling good all the time, you can actually continue the process of getting better. And really, it just comes down to letting go. Like for so many things, for me, I always come back to letting go of the idea that there's anything wrong. Like, at what point can you arrive? At what point can you look around at your life, at yourself, as all of your habits you deem to be shitty habits, your procrastination, your messy room, and just sit there, be like, this is all perfect. Everything is perfect right now. How much weight drops when you come to that point of just letting go of the idea that anything should be changed in any given moment about you, about your habits, about the things that you think are so wrong with you that you have to improve, that person who doesn't think something about you or you think doesn't like you, that's perfect too. And just letting go of the idea that any of it should be changed. And it's like, oh man, very few people come to that point. Everyone's always running around thinking they're trying to fix something, thinking they have to improve this thing. No, what do you mean this is perfect? This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. I have to improve this. I have to change that. I have to work on this. What if you didn't? Like, that's all we're really saying is getting to a point where you can do things for the sake of doing them. So many of us are doing things to get something out of it, to build an idea of ourselves, to like improve something that we deem to be wrong, that we deem to be imperfect. What if it wasn't? What if you could just sit there and realize this right now, everything about this experience, this moment is absolutely perfect? How much weight does that drop? And it's those things, that recognition, that drops the weight and allows you to do things, to see things differently, to change, the habits you deem to be imperfect. All of a sudden, they're not so sticky anymore. They're not like something, oh, I can't maneuver from this because, God forbid, something changes. It's like, it's always changing. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing you have to do. And that allows you to do anything. So, well said, as always, man. I appreciate you very much and everything you've added. And it's fucking awesome to see your continued growth, especially just, the last however long it's been now, 5 months. I always appreciate everything you add. But BMAC.
Yeah, again, like everyone else, there's been so much conversation. It's just like, where to start, guys? But yeah, I think in terms of like Levi, you could see like in your face that you just wanted to like express how much that insight meant to you, but you don't have to worry about expressing it because we could see it like in your smile, in your energy, like it's just there to be received by everybody. And I guess same as Mark as well, like you can just read it off people, like it doesn't matter what you say. But yeah, the procrastination thing is so interesting because for me, in the moment, it's hard to discern, like, is it my intuition guiding me towards this thing, or is it my ego trying to keep me from something? But I feel like if I try to boil it down, for me, the lesson of procrastination has always been like, how much do you think that you're needed in this process? Like, what outcome are you looking for that you think you need to insert yourself into to be like, okay, it's only going to work out this way if I do this thing? And so it's always just kind of like watching that and being like, is my life dictated by quote unquote the content of what is quote unquote outside? Or is it just what opportunity do I have to learn and grow and build my awareness? And life comes in themes. And I feel like I've had this thing on my phone for like a couple of years now. So it'll be interesting to see when the theme changed. But Mark threw out his favorite quotes. I'll throw out my favorite quote, which is life will always give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. And how do you know that this is the experience that you need? Because this is the experience that you're having. And again, I have like yam socks in my head from that podcast, just being like, yes, every path is valid. And so it's just like when something comes up, you're feeling like procrastinating on it. I should be doing this thing, but I'm not sure. It's just like, yes, I can just sit in this procrastination. It's such an opportunity to like dive into like, where am I trying to insert myself, or where do I know that I should be going, but I'm too fearful to go. And then those moments become your signposts in life. They become your barometers to look back on. And sometimes it takes like, well, at least for me, I've only been on just this journey like a couple of years, but it's like 2 years time, you could be like, oh, that makes sense now. That was me proving to myself that like this is what my intuition feels like, or proving to myself that like I didn't need to be involved at all and the outcome worked its way out in the way that it needed to be. But it's never what you think. So it's just like, how relevant do you think you are? And even like the skincare thing, I've been on that little theme as well recently, because it's like, how often do you just put your skincare on, like slap it on because you think, well, obviously Ray, no, but just for me personally, how often, and am I slapping stuff on my face because I'm like, well, this isn't super relevant to me, but it's like, this is gonna like cultivate my, you know, wrinkles, or it's going to like do XYZ. For me, it's like dry skin. So it's like, am I just slapping this on very kind of aware just because I need to go to bed now and I'm tired? And it's like, what is even the point of that? Like, just go to bed if you're not going to like be in that process of like putting your skincare on and being in that moment. Because your skin's not going to get very much out of it. It's just like, well, life knows when you're just doing things out of being like token, you know, or just out of routine or ritual, or you're trying to get something. And it's like, if your skin is dry, like really spend that time putting your awareness into it. And as you're rubbing, like maybe close your eyes and like feel the, you know, moisture going on, like be your skin and like receive what you're giving to it. It's like really just your attention and your awareness that life is always calling out for, and almost like screaming out at every angle just to be like, hey, you know, like there's so much more here than you're giving credit for. Yeah, I think that's kind of, again, the end of my rant, but again, just like so grateful to be here and part of these chats, and that it is completely like open to everyone. Like everybody can get involved in this in some version, whether it's just like listening to the podcast or jumping on the free chats. Like it's just accessible, and there are no barriers. And it's like indicative of the group as well. Like nobody's going to be like blocking anybody off, you know, mentally. It's always just like, okay, what am I taking out of this conversation? And where is my opportunity to see how I can evolve my own consciousness?
Beautifully said, PMac. Yeah, I got some thoughts about some different points you make, but first of all, with the skincare, I don't do shit for skincare, and I know Ray doesn't either, because I've shared bathrooms with him, and that dude has like toothpaste and a toothbrush. That's about it. I have like my little stash I keep in the corner, and he's just like toothbrush, toothpaste over there, and I'm like, fuck. Maybe learn a thing or two with that, but yeah, no, I really do think I have a theory with skincare that it's a reflection of so much more of the internal and stressors. Like people like to, you know, focus on all of the external stuff and adding things and whatnot, but I really do think it's an expression of the internal lack of stress, internal freedom, you know, whatever words you want to use to describe that. But yeah, with that, I think the reduction of stress is probably the best skincare routine anyone can ever have. And so getting stressed about a skincare routine is like, you know, pushing and pulling at the same sort of thing. With the recognition that the things you're going through, you don't know, you know, the experience that you're having is the most perfect thing because it's the experience that you're having, and the insight that, you know, you don't know how it's going to be utilized moving forward. If you haven't checked out Arrival, the movie, you're gonna really like that. We have our review that'll be out at some point, but it's it really hits home on that in the recognition that you don't know, as difficult as something is that you're going through right now, like you don't know how much you're learning. It's going to be utilized by your future self, basically. And there's so many things looking back we can look at and be like, oh yeah, I learned that. Oh, that really fucking sucked, but I did learn all of those things, and now I'm able to utilize that. And so we get so caught then in the present moment of like, oh God, I'm going through this thing. I thought I was over this. I feel like I don't need to be learn. I think I thought I already learned this lesson. I keep going through it. You don't know how it's going to be utilized. You don't know what that experience is going to teach you. You don't know how you're going to be able to resonate with people moving forward. And that's one of the biggest things we do. Like anytime we have a conversation with someone, so many of the things we talk about are things that we resonate with, similar experiences. And so just having experiences, and I guess this kind of ties into procrastination a little bit, is just how deep you are as a person, how much depth you have to your experiences, just how many fucking experiences that you have. It's not about having good experiences or doing the right thing all the time. It's a lot of times doing the dumbest shit makes for the best stories, or going through something that you're like, damn, I really didn't need to do that. That was a lot of extra stress and weight in my life. But then you know, there's something that comes out of that. So it really is just having as many experiences as you can, making as many decisions as you can, continuing on despite how you feel, because when you recognize that you don't know what it's going to lead to, that it doesn't matter what your opinion of it is right now, you can just, it makes it easier to just keep moving through it. And so it's super powerful to recognize that. But I think, yeah, that movie Arrival, I think everyone's going to really enjoy it. I couldn't recommend it more. And you're definitely going to have to watch it twice. Just saying that. Not going to expand on that, but you will. And Marie, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, so many things. Lord. Okay, but I started taking notes, y'all, because I was like, early on, it would have been lost, gone forever. But really, it's funny because it kind of is looping back to the beginning of what Ray just started off right off in the depths of reality or uncertainty or whatever you want to say. Sorry, words. These opportunities, these conversations, like us sharing the same recognition, the same sorry, the same thing. We're having the same conversations all the time, right? You just, like you said this earlier, we are saying the same things, and it is all the same thing, right? Like we just keep even my own experience or all of our experiences is like it's the same recognition of, oh yeah, I'm not what I think I am. Oh yeah, and so it makes me think of the way that we're experiencing this now, like you were saying, Ray's the infinite expression that we can conceptualize, I guess, in this way of that. Oop. It's hard to say. So, but okay. I knew I was gonna struggle with this, but this is why it was wild how you said it. I almost like want you to say what you were thinking again, Ray, because I was like, what? Can I pause there and like have you repeat? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you think that I can do that? All right. That's funny. I just put a quarter in and see where things go. And it's funny because you're like, oh, we'll start back at the beginning. And my brain just went, which beginning? Where are we going? What was I saying?
Before the Big Bang, though,
Yeah. So everything that currently exists is basically our template for thinking. So whenever we think of whatever happened before the Big Bang or before now is based on what we experience now. It's always based on the way that we perceive reality, 3 dimensions, time, space, all that other stuff. But we admit in science that everything that came before the Big Bang is nothing like what's happening now. In fact, there's more energy, there's more potential, there's more everything than we could possibly measure or even imagine, which is what came before the Big Bang. So it's not physical objective reality the way that we're looking at it now, but we keep thinking about it that way. Like, oh, if we could just understand like what the molecules were doing, and we keep assuming that there were molecules instead of nothing but potentiality from the subjective, which is basically just soup. It's just quantum soup based of everything that could possibly exist. If you were to put it on a small square on a screen, it would just be this molten, moving thing of every color and every shape. And you'd see faces appear and faces disappear. And you'd see mountains and shapes and trees and shit. And it would all just disappear. But it'd be moving so fast and so fucking infinitely that you wouldn't be able to actually see anything because there's no space or time to express all of that in there. So the beginning of your life, the moment you were born and the moment that you die, would both be somewhere in that quantum fucking soup, all moving at so fast a speed that there's no speed at all. That is expressed as space and time. That's everything that happened after the Big Bang. Except before the Big Bang, it was all just here now as once, with no way for us to observe it, because that would require space and time. So space and time is us observing everything that happened before the Big Bang.
So it's that recognition, though, infinitely expressed. Like we're just, oh yeah, that this is here all the time. It is all the time. And it's like, and that's what these conversations are, but it's so important to have them, because I wasn't having it much with other people. And it's because like we're constantly distracted to not think about what's right here, right now, all the time, or there's a lot that fogs it up, and it's a recognition that you can drop that fog. We think that we can't, and
yeah,
I always think of Mark when I say you can drop it.
But that's it. You can drop it. You can just set it down, right? You can. I always find it really funny because, again, I was raised Roman Catholic. I got beat over the head with a Bible, quite literally, in a lot of ways. And there were so many things that Jesus said that if you were to say them, people would go, that sounds very Christian. The kingdom of heaven is smaller than a mustard seed. That sound what we're saying about all of this exists before time and space? All of this doesn't exist anywhere smaller than a mustard seed, or eternal life? Does that sound familiar? Right? Because that's what we're talking about. What we're talking about, the fact is that we are literally just eternal life. We are existence. What happens after we die is everything that's happening now.
Yeah, and so time and space are necessary in order to have this perception, but without them, then it is just everything here now, but it's still that. And so the perception has shifted, and I have a tough time wrestling with, how we've kind of been going about the before and the after the Big Bang. It's like, because it isn't any different. There is no thing, because our mind likes to be like,
after.
all right, yeah, exactly. Like here's the Big Bang, and then there's before over here where, everything is like over here, but there's no time and space, and over here there's time and space. And so exactly, that's it, because there isn't over here. So like there isn't. And the whole thing, this whole screen that I have, Big Bang, before, after, is just the perception of time and space. So we can't even say this because it's not we're utilizing the idea of time and space in order to have this try and comprehend a before without time and space, in air quotes for those listening. Like, so even the description that we're utilizing is not it, because there isn't, it's both and neither. Like it is what this is here now and before.
Yeah, in the same way that we are all very far away from one another, and yet in the exact same place and time. Marie?
I was thinking this earlier too. I put it in the chat, but there were so many hands up and I didn't want to obviously intervene. But like when you watch the live stream, you don't see when people's hands go up, or like the screens don't move, which trippy. How can this experience that we're having be this? And at the same time, I was like, oh my God, that is like reality. Like it all can exist at the same time. But it still is. How do you program that to do that?
That's a fantastic question. That's kind of tripped me out now too. I'm like, and that's the same thing. That kind of reminds me. One time I made a TikTok when I straight up tripped my balls off on like 3.5, 4 grams, and ended up staying up on TikTok for a while until someone reported it, and then it got taken down. Then I got a strike, and then I've gotten way too many strikes, so I don't make as many mushroom videos anymore. But like I was pupils dilated, and I was I was laughing really hard because I was filming it and I had the film, like the record button on, and I was staring at my phone. And obviously it's not like a live stream, so it's not this immediate thing, but I was like looking at my phone and how it's just this little box thing that's recording my face. And I'm speaking words, and I was saying something like, isn't it funny how as I'm saying these words, you're hearing these words, but I'm saying them before you're hearing them, but as you're hearing them, I'm saying them. As I'm saying them, you're hearing them here and now. I filmed it here and now, but we perceive a different here and now. Like I recorded it and then someone could see it the next day or 2 weeks later, but it's still me saying the words and they're hearing the words at the same time. And so it tripped me out in that state because I was just in it. And that this moment is that moment. And as you're seeing it, and that's what gets me about anything that's recorded, really. Like it's all you're saying, everything we're saying is being said here now, and we're just perceiving it in this linear fashion. We're like, someone could watch this in 3 days and be like, oh, they recorded it 3 days ago. But what you're watching is here now, like in this moment, you're seeing it and hearing it simultaneously, whether you're on the live stream or you're watching the recording. So anything that's recorded is being perceived in the here and now, always. So
Kind of makes you wonder about deja vus, right? What are you running across except something that you can accept already exists? Right. And this is the thing, is that I've always said that every single thing you experience is simply one variation of everything that you could possibly experience that's already in your awareness. If you were to sit down in a room with your eyes closed and just dare to have enough imagination, you could imagine every variation of this conversation happening with every variation of person you could ever imagine, in every variation of the conversation itself, with every variation of backgrounds and sounds and the voices and everything else. You could imagine all of that in your awareness if you were to just give it enough time and not limit your imagination. So you would be seeing things that, given enough time in reality, would actually become your reality, because it's all within your awareness. It's just that your awareness is that fucking big. Your awareness is that big that you could literally just sit and imagine things all day fucking long, and you'll never ever come close to the amount of things that are actually being expressed in reality as a result of all of the things that you could possibly imagine. That's what reality is. The limitlessness of everything our awareness can imagine expressed over time in a way that we can reconcile as being realistic.
So people get caught up in imagination and hypothetical situations, but that is us just going through potential situations that could possibly be, but because it's infinite, the possibility of it happening the way you imagine it is zero, because it's infinite. And so that's why you can think back on things and settle upon an idea of the past, but that's not the reality of what happened. You're seeing an iteration of it that you're perceiving here and now that isn't that, but in this moment right now, like everyone on this screen happened to, come to a culmination where we all just happen to be on the screen perceiving, the same experience, but any of us could be in any other iteration of us with any other iterations of others of us, or in any other place and time in this moment. And it's all exists in the potential of that, just like any future situation. So we can imagine, you can imagine your life in 10 years, and you can imagine literally anything. Like right now, I just had 10 thoughts of where I could be, what moment I could be in, because they all are moments that I'm in. I only experience one of them as it happens, but I'm experiencing all of them right now in my head pretty fucking clearly. As I'm talking, as I'm looking at the screen, I'm also seeing, 10 situations of me in 10 years, being 37. One's in like this house by a pool, and others, walking through a field with a dog in front of me. Like, it's crazy, because that's reality. Oh boy.
Yeah. And that's it. This is why nothing is as simple as we'd like to make it sound. You know, this is why when you see something like The Lord of the Rings, for example, the entire story and everything that was envisioned around it, the fact that languages were developed in order to facilitate that, were they developed or were they just tapped into? Right? When authors write stories, they say they see them. When musicians write music, they hear that shit. You know, like Mozart, for example, wrote whole fucking symphonies that he expressed. I hear them in my head. Was he hearing their completed work? Was he hearing something that already exists in potential and then just pulling it out of the ether to manifest it in the world? Is that how shit comes into being? Is everything already exists and we're just fucking erupting with it all the time? There's more to this. There's more to this than the just, you know, we're spinning on a rock going through the universe. Like that whole fucking view of things is so simplistic. And there's a good reason it's simplistic, because that means we don't have to keep questioning it. We don't have to actually look at existence and go, I actually don't know if all that's the case or not, because that's terrifying for somebody if they have no faith in themselves. But the only reason we have no faith is because we have an idea of ourselves that limits us from having that faith. You know, once we let go of that idea, we can actually see what we're capable of. And then it becomes so easy to have faith. It becomes so easy to have faith in the same way it becomes so easy to give once you stop needing. It's just that we don't see it that way. We're always trying to accumulate traits. We're always trying to accumulate some kind of a persona or a personality or someone that we're supposed to eventually be. And we don't recognize it's the person we are when we're not trying to do any of that. That's when we're at our best. Fuck, how counterintuitive is that? You know, it goes against everything that we're invested in all the time.
Well, this has been a fun group. Oh man, thank you to all of you for joining. This has been definitely our biggest group. I'm gonna pass it to PMAC real quick. I know we have a few seconds, but if you want to add something,
bring it on home, PMAC,
and then we'll wrap things up.
This one finishes on 1:45. I didn't know that, but yeah, I was just gonna say it echoes like the experience that I had. One of my first recognitions. This was when I was like I don't know, ages ago, before I knew about any of this stuff. And it was like my first experience on like a hash brownie. And so it was like I would get told the punchline of the joke at the beginning of the night. And I had the way that I described it afterwards was like my deja vus were accesses to like time portals, so I could travel through time. And so by the end of the night, like the beginning of the joke just kind of like unfolded it. And in that moment, I had no idea what was going on. So I was like, what does that mean? And I just knew innately, it was like, you'll understand later. You'll find it really funny later. And that's kind of like what life is. You're just getting these punchlines, and sometimes it feels like a fist in the face, but it's just the end of a joke that you will understand later. And then you'll have like that Buddha laugh about it. That's just like, oh, that was ridiculous that I got so serious about that thing.
And it's so much funnier yet because I did. Right. And that's it. It's just, it'll come to me eventually. And as long as I don't take it too seriously, that's definitely going to be the case. But if I do take it seriously, that can only last for so long, and then I'll get it anyway.
Yeah, literal punchline sometimes. That's what it feels like. But yeah, so anyway, this has been a fucking blast.
Hell yeah, this has been great.
Yeah, this has been a fun one. Definitely our biggest roundtable we have had. For anyone who listened, you saw these are what the groups are like. They're a lot of fun, but they're private. The groups are all private, so you don't have to worry about anything being posted publicly. So yeah.
One quick announcement before we break off here. I do want to mention that for anybody who is interested in being on a roundtable episode, roundtable episodes are only available to tier 2 and tier 3 Patreon supporters at the moment. If you would like to be in a group discussion like this, you can do that for as little as $5 a month. But if you would like to join us on a roundtable, it's just tier 2. But the nice thing is tier 2 actually comes with a bunch of merch and a bunch of other shit too. So when you get bigger retreat discounts, it's just worthwhile doing this. Yeah, there's some merch right there. Amanda's sporting for us. So we're going to cut off here. We're going to continue in about 13 minutes on Patreon. If you would like to join us, it's Tuesday night, so it is a tier 2 call, and it'll be about an hour and a half, and we will see you there. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone.